Welcome to Latina Mic Drop, the podcast where you can show up and show out, where bold moves are not only encouraged, but the standard. This is where excellence meets simplicity and common sense. I'm Miriam Simon, your host, a leadership coach, author, speaker, a mom of three young adults, a grandma in my 40s, and a spouse to the most beautiful, kind soul on a mission to empower 1 million people to continue to tap into their exponential power. If you're out there building your own family and your own future from scratch, you're in the right place. Join me as we explore the stories, strategies, and secrets that can turn your hustle into legacy and peace of mind. Ready to transform your life? Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Latina Mic Drop. And so for today, I wanted to talk about one of the biggest lessons that I learned from my daughter, my middle child, Rosa. And one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is to see myself. And I want to talk about today, have you met you? That concept is interesting because from what I've seen and even from my coaching clients, a lot of people really don't even realize the impact that they have or how they're walking around in life. And so I think it's really important for us to be able to do a quick check periodically to figure out, hey, how am I showing up? What is going on? And my daughter Rosa has been my reflection in the mirror, not because we look alike, but because she helped me see what I couldn't see for myself. And she taught me to stop saying things like, hey guys, to her and her sister, Mitzi. She's like, hey mom, like, we're not guys. It's just us two. Why do you keep calling us guys? Right? That's a bad habit that I've had from growing up. Even in Spanish speaking, almost everything is in the male version. The majority of the time, you didn't say Latina, right? You say Latino. Or you would not refer, when there was a mix of people, of male and female, you would not refer to them as mixed. You would just say the male version of it, of whatever the word is of the noun. And that's actually how you would refer to people, regardless if they were male, female, or not. It didn't make a difference. And one day I was reflecting on my personal experiences. And this was a while ago, like many, many years ago, when they were still maybe preteens, teens. I had to be about 10 years ago or so. And I was reflecting how I was impacting other people. Some people thought I was too much. Some people thought I was intimidating. People were having a reaction to me. Then she says to me, Mom, have you met you? And that really just stopped me in my tracks because I was just like, actually, when was the last time I checked in with myself? At the moment, right, when she said that to me, I just paused and I needed time to reflect. I needed time really to sink in what that meant for me. And it was just a really good realization for me to understand the fact that how I came across, the impact that I was leaving, it was in my control. Then for the first time in a long time, I wasn't paying attention to that. Now, this is way before I became a leader, way before I was a supervisor, way before I had leadership training, way before I did 1,000,001 assessments. I mean, I've probably done 4 different assessments. What kind of leader are you? I've always read leadership books, but before my actual formal experience of being a supervisor, then my formal experience of being a leader. And so I'm really happy that she did it at the time that she did it, because that really gave me an opportunity to dig deep and really gave me an opportunity to have some self-awareness. And I was starting to think about, hey, how am I showing up? But a bunch of questions came up. Who the heck was I? What am I walking around with? Right? What what size is the baggage I'm carrying around with me? And with her, I experienced one of the greatest loves besides my son and two daughters and my wife, my granddaughter. And at first I was pissed off, right? Because my daughter Rosa has taught me many, many lessons throughout the years. And actually, my kids are one of the driving forces in my life and one of the main motivation and inspiration in my life. And I always wanted a better life for them. I always wanted them to experience life differently than I did. I always wanted them to have more than I did. I wanted them to have the mother that I didn't have. I wanted them to have two parents in the household. I mentioned in my last podcast about gratefulness, it was really hard for me to be grateful because of all the hard stuff I had been through. But now I was at a point where I was working full time for years now. I was raising my kids, they're preteen, teens. And now we're at a point where they're ready to get into adulthood. And so what happened is my daughter doesn't tell me, tells my wife first that she was expecting a baby. And so that was one of the hardest things for me to reflect upon because it was either her go to college or have the baby. And she made her own decision. I helped her. And some parents may think I was nuts and crazy about this. But in reality, right, there comes a point where some kids are just ready to be on their own. And some kids are not even kids, like they're young adults already. So they begin to make their own choices and they begin to make their own decisions. And they need to be able to live with those consequences of their decisions. And looking back, in reality, she really did save me from a lot of money going into college. Because she didn't go, I was going to get into a tremendous amount of debt to be able to get her to go. The one thing that she did teach me later on was she is the one that actually opened my eyes to entrepreneurship. She opened my eyes during my younger years. She was always the one that always had a different perspective. She challenged a lot of the habits and thoughts that I had from being raised in a traditional Mexican household. She was living a different life. She was living in a better neighborhood. She was living in a better school. She wasn't around the traditional Mexican household that I was as a first generation Mexicans that came into the United States in poverty and unable to really fend for ourselves. We really needed to fight for everything that we had, and we didn't have like money for anything. I was able to provide a different kind of life for my kids. And so their life experiences were very different. So she was able to reflect upon me all the different stereotypical gender roles that my family had taught me. With her, she was like, Mom, I'm not a guy. Don't call me a guy. My sister's not a guy. We're both girls. Please refer to us as girls or young women. She kept me aware of all the things that were taught to me about gender roles. For me, it was a really good way to be able to say, okay, you know what? I do need to take a look at this. I do need to see if what I was taught even makes sense for my life today. Now I was approaching when my granddaughter came, right? Which was at a perfect timing because we needed that joy in our life. And it really helped me stretch my thought process, and it really helped me stress what I thought was normal. And now, who was I to freaking talk about this? I had also had my kids young. I had them 3 before I was 21. So who was I to say anything and who was I to judge? But what was going on was that I was really reflecting upon my own experiences and my own quote unquote failures that I felt, right? Because I would never say that my kids were a failure. They were not. The relationship that I had gotten in was a failure. And you'll learn about that in my book, Tattoos and Pearls. But they were not. They are the greatest thing that has ever happened to me because they were able to teach me so many lessons. And being self aware and the impact that I had on other people was the reflection that I needed from my kids so that I can learn as much as I could from them and how I was coming across. And until this day, those are still the same lessons that they teach me, because they tell me what it is that they need from me in whatever stage we're in, because it doesn't stop. They don't stop growing. They don't stop moving on. Right now, they're in their early 20s. But every 3 months, I remember when they were kids, every 3 months, I remember having to buy them new clothes because nothing would ever fit. So most parents know you end up buying a size or two bigger than they are so the clothes can last longer, because every 3 months you have to buy, and every 3 months there's a different season, right? So last year's winter clothes doesn't fit this year. And that happens all the way through until they become adults, pretty much. And then as adults, now the relationship is very different, and now you become a guide as opposed to the parent who's telling them what to do and like dictating this and that. My daughter Rosa is actually the one that would always reflect upon the impact, the negative impact that I would have. And because she didn't put up with it, which is hard, because as a parent, you don't want your kids to tell you what to do or tell you what you're doing wrong. But in reality, it really did help me grow, and it really did help me see what I couldn't see for myself. And she has been the person who even opened my eyes to entrepreneurship. She, after her baby, she was able to stay home because I told her that during the pandemic anyways, we weren't able to go out anywhere. And so she stayed home, and her man was the one that was working full time, and he has been full time the whole time. He's been a great parent to Lily and a great partner to my daughter Rosa. I've never seen a man go to every single doctor's appointment with a woman like he did. He was very supportive, and I love him for that, for taking care of my daughter and taking care of my granddaughter. And I said, listen, why don't you stay home? And me making recommendations, not telling them what to do. She wanted to be able to stay home so that she could watch her daughter while she's growing up. What she did for money was she opened her own business. She has a crochet business. It's called I'm Not Rosie. She creates these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful purses, beautiful pillows, hats. She customizes dolls. She customizes all kinds of goodies. For the winter, she makes these beautiful earmuffs that actually went viral on TikTok. One weekend, she posted it up, and one day to the next ended up having 1 million views on her earmuffs, to the point that she needed to shut down the orders because she wasn't going to be able to produce all these orders. And she was the one, because of her success, she was the one that really opened my eyes to, hey, there's opportunity to do things differently. You think about all these parents, and I hear it all the time, even when I'm at work and I do corporate classes, people say that the kids, what they want to become is like an influencer, something that has to do with social media. These kids are really making money. These young people are making money out there, and social media is free. You can advertise your business through all of these sources on social media. That's what she did. Little by little, she grew her following, and she has thousands of followers, and she has a thriving business where she uses her creativity. And just recently she created the Lily bag, which is gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. I'm telling you, I started to see that and I said, well, that's interesting, right? She's working from home. She's posting this on social media. She has her business. I was like, wow, like that's really cool that she's able to raise her daughter and be able to work from home and be able to have her own business. That kind of like just sparked an idea. Wow, like we really are not traditional in this household at all. We really are taking a look at what are new things that we can do. And with her, it's just so interesting how throughout the years, I've been able to see her maturity grow. And she has been able to teach me all these different things. And so the first one was, to have self-awareness about everything, that how I was coming across, what's the impact, what am I doing, how am I showing up? What do I look like? What is going on? It's been amazing to be able to have a daughter that has been able to show me that, hey, you know what? You do sometimes have to meet yourself where you are, and you do need to talk to yourself or ask yourself these questions about where are you in life? What are you doing? How are you showing up? What's going on? But if you haven't done one recently, do a self-assessment and figure out where are you in life? What is going on? What is no longer serving you? What is still good that you want to continue, right? What is it that you want to work on? What is it that you haven't done in a long time? I didn't even know what I wanted to do or what I wanted to. It was all about everybody else. And now I realized how sometimes I took it too far and I helped people so much that I didn't help myself. And I ended up being the person that didn't realize what I was doing and how I was doing it and how I was showing up. Now, as a leader and executive, one of the main things that I do is I make sure that I am intentional about how I show up. Talk about turning your tattoos into pearls of wisdom. This girl taught me that, Mom, you need to make self assessment and you need to be self aware of how you're coming across, your tone, your language. What is it that you're saying? How is it that you're showing up? What is it that you're thinking? Are you making assumptions about stuff, about people? What is it that you don't understand about others that you need to understand about others? And with her, right, I knew that she was being raised differently. She didn't have the same life I did, so I couldn't expect her or any of my kids to know what it was like to live in poverty or know what it was like to be have parents that were immigrants that were not raised in the United States, who didn't know what it was like to be raised here in the United States for the first time. My mom didn't know any about that. My dad didn't either. They didn't know what it was like to go to school here. They didn't even go to school themselves and where they came from. So how are they going to know, right? How are they going to know what the possibilities were here in the United States? All they knew was that this was the place of opportunity, but they didn't know what my life really was like. Till this day, they don't have any idea of what my life is like. Then now, how was I going to have that same expectation of my kids to have the same outlook that I did from my experience in my eyes, which was totally and completely different than the life that I was giving them? They were raised by two parents. We were both women, but we were two parents. And actually, they trusted my wife more because I was the one that was a little bit more emotionally charged, right? Because they're my kids and I was the only one and I was taking care of them and their father wasn't around. And I felt like I had so much responsibility that I like, you could see how passionate I am about them. If you can't see me, I hope you could feel it, because every time I talk about them, it's like this energy just comes through because I love them so much and I wanted so much for them. And so how could I expect them to experience life the way I did? It was very different than what I did. And so I'm really happy that they were able to teach me, all three of them, but especially my daughter Rosa was able to teach me about myself and about how I was coming across and about the traditions that maybe shouldn't be, about gender roles, about all these things that we carry on, or even the negative baggage that I had, not being able to get over some things, or maybe holding on and holding on to grudges and carrying that weight with me. The good thing about it is that she opened my eyes to be able to be the leader that I am today. And because of that, I do take different assessments. I do take a inner look at where I am, how I'm showing up. What am I contributing to the problem? What am I contributing to a situation? How am I showing up? What am I thinking? What are my intentions that are showing up, right? Is it real? Is it that I'm just making up something? Am I assuming? It happens to all of us. We all have thoughts. Our thoughts are not always reality. And she helped me see that reality, and she helped me be the reflection that I needed in the mirror. And I can tell you that she's not the only one. I've had a bunch of other people tell me the same thing. And as hard as it is to hear it, it is very important that you listen. When these show up in your life, it's really important to hear it out, to really say, okay, they said, this is how I came across. And sometimes you have to think about it, right? Am I trying to be right? Or am I trying to make this work? Right? And that's very different. Because if you're trying to make it right, sometimes you just want people to agree with you, when in reality, it's not about being right or wrong. It's about you saying your side and them saying theirs, and both could be right for each person. So that's sometimes what you have to take a look at. And then, yes, people are different. Yes, people have different personalities. Yes, people lead differently. Yes, people have a different style. Yes, people talk differently. Yes, all of that is true. But I think that there is a way for us to find common ground. That's what we need to look for. Where is the common ground? How can we make this work? What is the impact as leaders? My goodness, one of the biggest faults that I see in leaders today is that they have no idea what their impact is. They put out an initiative, they put out something, and they have no idea how they're coming across. They have no idea the pressure that they just put on their employees. They have no idea how even certain things work because they did not take them into consideration. These are kinds of awareness sometimes that we need. And if you're a leader and you have somebody who is really just not, you think, oh, they're a problem, or they're coming across this way or coming across that way, you really need to take a look at yourself and say, hey, how am I contributing to this? What is it that I'm saying? Am I micromanaging them? Do I really trust them? Am I really sharing with them what I need, the clear expectations? And that's one of the things that has helped me all these years that I've been in corporate, all these years, is I have like a few, they're just popping up in my head, the instances where somebody had a reaction to something I did or said. And those are the moments that I paid attention the most, because I was like, okay, that triggered something and I need to figure it out, because I don't want that. What I want is momentum. I want impact, but in a good way. I want people to be able to work. I want them to feel excited to be here. I want them to be motivated to do the work. I want them to feel safe. I want them, like, there's just so many other things that you want for people, and the impact and how you say it, what you say, when you take them, into account, how much time you give them to do it. Sometimes we know we don't have enough time. Sometimes things happen, right? Like the pandemic, everything happened so quickly. We needed to figure out what we were doing every other day. It felt like, or every day, depending on what the new guidelines were, right? So every day we shifted and we pivoted and we did what we needed to do, right? But not every day has to be lived like that. But even though those are the situations, we still need to think about, what is it that we are doing? How is it that we're saying it? What is our energy like? Some people, it's our own insecurity that makes them feel horrible. And some people do know more than us. Like, that's just the reality of it. And that's okay, right? My daughter right now, she has way more followers than me. She has way more influencers than me. That's okay. So guess what? I could learn from her. Why am I gonna like think, oh my God, she's so much younger than me and she has all this and all that? Like, no, I'm not gonna be thinking like that. What I'm thinking about is like, how did she get there? What did she do? What are some of the things that I can learn from her to figure it out? And how is she coming across? What is her mindset? What is her thinking? What is she doing? What is it that she's, how is she tapping into her creativity? What sparks this creativity that she ends up going viral a few times, based on her products. And so these are the kinds of things that I have to think about as a leader, because as a leader you can do the same thing. You could think about, oh, there's somebody out here who's really doing the work, or they come across as impactful to so many people. Well, what is it that they're doing? How is it that they're making it happen? But if you don't look inside and you think it's always everybody else, you're never gonna be able to figure it out, and you're always going to be blaming other people for the things that maybe you do have control over. And as a leader, you have control. You do have control over yourself, and you do have control over how you come across, and you do have control over how you can help your team. Like, one of the main things I do is I always make sure I check in with my team. If some things are going left when they should be going right, hey, let me know why we're going left. Like, what's going on, right? I'm thinking we should go right, but can you guys tell me, or can you fill me in on to why we're going left? And sometimes they're right. We should go left. And sometimes they're like, oh, well, we didn't think about that. Oh, okay. So then I can fill them in. Right. But the thing is that nowadays it's about give and take. It's not just dictating to people and telling them how to do it, because they all have their own mind. They all have their own way, and they're all going to add their sauce and how they know how to do it, or how they figure out how to do things. And they may even figure out how to do things even better than we do. And they're coming from a different perspective. They're living a different way than we did. They have so much technology that they can do things probably even quicker and faster. Some of us don't want it. Some people don't like it. But for me, I welcome it, because if it makes my life easier, I'm for it 1000%. But I always have to think about, like, how is it going to impact the majority of the employees? And so as a person who has to, who has the employee centric focus, like, that is key to my success. The only way that I can be successful is if I'm paying attention to the impact that I'm having with the people around me, the people that are my peers, and the people above me. There's no way that you're going to be successful if you do not pay attention to the impact. I'm really excited and happy that my daughter was able to teach me that lesson years ago, when I was probably in my 20s. I don't think I was in my 30s yet, maybe. Before I became a supervisor, and before I became a leader, and before I became an executive, because all those lessons that she taught me helped me see what my bias was, what the gender roles I was thinking about the baggage I was carrying, all the information that I thought I knew was true. And in reality, it was just habits and thoughts that I had ingrained from my upbringing. Most likely at a certain point, they may serve you in some environments, but in others they don't. In order to be successful, those are the kinds of things that you need to figure out. And sometimes you need to flex to other people's styles. I prefer text. If somebody wants to flex their style with me, and they're a person who talks on the phone more than I do, that's okay. What I'll do is I'll call them on the phone, because I know I can get them, and that's the way that they communicate. But with me, if somebody's flexing to my style of communication, they'll text me and they'll get the answers that they need. Or they'll tell me, hey, I need to talk to you. And then I know that it's something serious. Then I need to call them and have that conversation, or set up some time to talk to them. There's so many different assessments nowadays that you can take, that you would be able to figure out how is it that you make decisions. What is it that your decision making leads to? What impact are you having? Just look at the reactions of people. If you're constantly fighting with somebody, there's something you're contributing to that conflict. And having difficult conversations are one of the most difficult things you can do in leadership or in a working environment, but they have to be done. At some point, we're not going to agree with everybody. You're going to see one way, they're going to see another way, and not having a conversation, that just snowballs into us, like, not being able to work together. And that's not the reality of life. If you want to be able to continue to work there, and you want to be valued, and you want to value your employees, that's the only way, is for you to face those conversations. And anyways, like, the way that I see it is, if we talk about it right away, it will never get that big where it's a huge conflict. Or, you know what, sometimes they may be able to tell me something that will help me see how I'm contributing to the problem. And I 1000% welcome that. Is it easy? No. Is it hard to hear? Yeah, sometimes. But if you respect the person and you know that they have good intentions, and even if you think, this person's kind of not there for me all the time. I don't know if they have good intentions with me, but you know what? Sometimes if you just listen and hear them out, there may be some truth to it. And so that's what you have to take a look at it and say, okay, let me look inside and let me see for myself. What am I doing? Am I showing up defensive? Because if I'm showing up defensive and I have a chip on my shoulder, guess what? Other people are going to know that. They're going to, even in your email, when you write your email, you think your attitude isn't coming across. It 1000% is. Always, always check in with yourself. Check in to see where you're headed, and figure out a way, when you have those feelings that are making you feel conflicted, making you feel like you don't want to show up in a good attitude, or you have a bad attitude towards somebody. take a look at it and say, you know what? What's happening here? Why is this showing up? What is it that I can, maybe there's a conversation that I can have with the person and clear the air. Maybe I'm making assumptions about something that isn't even true, or they don't even see it that way. A lot of times they're going about their business the way that they know best. Nothing has, not really. They're trying to just figure it out for themselves, and they're trying to figure out how to make things happen, and they're just trying to help themselves. They're not trying to be mean to you or anything like that. That's just the way that they operate. And so sometimes you need to have that conversation to say, hey, this is actually how I operate. Is there any way that we could work this way? Or is there any way that we have some flexibility here? Is there something that we could work out? So most of the times you can when you have a conversation with somebody else. But 1000%, the one person that you can always count on is taking a look at yourself and be real with yourself, right? Like, if you can't do it on your own, this is where coaching comes in, because a coach can help you see what you can't see and help you understand where you are and help you reach your goals based on where you are in your life, what you're doing, how you're coming across, what your past experiences were. They can help you, give you a perspective, and it's a safe place to be able to have that with a coach. That's something, like, I had a coach, I had a few coaches actually in the last 2 years, and every single one of them helped me see something that I did not see for myself. And they were one of the people that always helped me understand that regardless of something, maybe my perspective was a little bit off. And when they challenged my thoughts or challenged my view, and then I took it in and thought about it, I was like, wow, they're actually right. Wow, this actually makes sense for me. Yeah, you know what? I hadn't thought about that. And then sometimes you learn to put the sword down, or sometimes things I didn't even realize I was coming across like that because of X, Y, and Z that happened to me, 20 years ago. And yeah, we do carry ourselves, right? Like, the mind and the body is a wonderful place that protects us. So what happens? You end up reacting to people who may trigger you, and then you end up reacting in a way to protect yourself. And sometimes, you freeze, you don't say anything. Sometimes you fight, you want to argue with them, or get defensive, or whatever, however it is that you fight. And those are the kinds of things that a coach can really help you out with in your professional goals. Like, sometimes we feel stuck, yeah, because sometimes the version of ourselves that we were isn't the version of yourself that is helping you any longer. Have you heard of that? What got you here won't get you there. So, like, at every level, there is a price to pay, and there is new learning skills as you mature, as you get older, as you gain more experience. You learn throughout all these years, but at the same time, you have to make sure that you're paying attention to what it is that's happening. And if it's a recurring theme, a coach can help you see the recurring theme, because they're going to tell you, could tell them about something that happened here, something that happened there, something that happened there. And then in a few sessions, a coach can say, hey, I'm noticing this theme. Is it resonating? Or, is there some truth to that? The client would have to let the coach know. These are the ways that you can get to the next step, or see things that maybe you haven't. I really wanted to talk about the self-awareness piece for today, because we are ending the year in 2024. We're in the middle of the holiday season and the end of the year. So some people will start thinking about the new year, new you. They'll start thinking about what it is that they want to have as New Year's resolutions. Maybe they'll even start thinking about the resolutions from this year that maybe they hit some or didn't reach those goals. I can tell you that working with a coach has been one of the best things that I've done. I've had several coaches throughout these past 2 years, and every single one of them helped me get to the next step and help me see things differently and help me see life differently. And I'm also really happy for my daughter, Rosa, who's been able to help me see things that I haven't seen and tell me the way that she wants to be treated, and has shown me to be a better parent, a better person, and been able to grow and be mature. And she's not the only one. My other kids taught me other lessons, and we'll talk about that at some other time. but I really wanted to have this conversation to be able to say, hey, you know what? Have you met you? If you haven't, maybe it's time to check in. Thank you for tuning in, and catch you on the flip side. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to Latina Mic Drop. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. We're building something extraordinary together. If today's episode inspired you, subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. For one-on-one coaching and more resources, follow me on your favorite social media platforms at author Miriam Simon, or visit my website at Miriam Simon Online. Until next time, keep turning your tattoos into pearls of wisdom and your dreams into reality. Stay strong, stay focused, and let's make history.